IPMNation.com.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Good morning and welcome to All Natural Being. I'm Brian Brawdy, as the announcer says, coming to you live from the Metropolitan Co-working Space, beautiful downtown Aurora, Illinois. And we'll treat today like it's the first of the week because a lot of people had a holiday, at least here in the States yesterday. So I'd like to kick off this morning saying thank you to some people that have been instrumental in making All Natural Being the number one show here on IPM Nation. In addition to you, all the help that you've been in keeping us in that slot, you know, I think it's because it's a show that reminds you of who you ultimately are. I like to think all the time I'm on your side even when you're not. Because outside of all the depression, outside of all the anxiety, outside of all the frustration and just the blah sometimes that we can feel moving through life, I remember who you are on the other side of those blind spots. I know who you are. Doesn't matter how tall, how wide, doesn't matter the color of your skin, the station you find yourself in life right now. Outside of all of that, I remember who you are. I know who you are. And I'm a huge fan of yours. The real you, the true you, the all-natural you. So, I don't know if you can hear that big garbage truck driving by right out front. Oh, I should also, before I get to the list of cities and listeners and viewers, I put up on Facebook this morning. If we're friends, if we're not friends on Facebook, I don't know why we're not, but put up a picture this morning of the deer stopping by the studio on Friday morning. One door down, boom, rammed right into the door, blew it out. I put the picture on Facebook. A little bit of truth in advertising. Make sure people know that there really was a deer running right down the sidewalk, right next to me here in the studio. But let's go ahead and get to it. I want to thank the good folks in Manchester, New Hampshire, Boston, Massachusetts, Rochester, Chicago, Illinois, New York, Aurora, Illinois. That's always nice to see. Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Cartersville, Georgia. Hello to Cartersville. Newark, New Jersey, and Cleveland, Ohio, rounding out the top 10. Thank you all so very much for supporting me and our show and IPM Nation in everything that we do. Because I think we've got a pretty wild future ahead of us, and everything that you and I can do to be remindful of who we are is going to prepare us perfectly for whatever unfolds in that future, right? If this were a show just about being happy and excited and thrilled, that would be one thing, and that would be pretty cool. I'm good with that. But this is also a show about preparing us mentally, physically, spiritually for whatever the future holds. Because I believe when you channel your inner superhuman, I believe that when you bring your all-natural being, when you bring your grit to the grind, isn't anything the labyrinth can throw at you, isn't anything that life, that fate is going to be able to toss up in your path that you can't handle. None of it. When you channel your all-natural being, you bring your A game. You raise yourself to a level. Again, you hone your grit so that no matter what the grind shows, no matter how it tips its hand, you and I are in a position to make sure we win that round. And that's what all natural being is all about. A friend of mine said to me yesterday, she was like, "You're very quiet today." It's Memorial Day here in the States. And I think a function of being quiet is I was just reflecting. Not just in my past, but in the past of some of my family and friends. Some people that have really put their all on the line. So I think this morning I'd like to focus on a sense of nostalgia. Because when we look at stress, when we look at the things that make us frustrated or depressed, or we just feel frazzled, or maybe we reach a stage in life where we're just stuck, I have a sense of hard times. Sometimes even a blah you can feel. A melancholy that just manifests itself around you. And you're just not digging where you are. Got to be something more to life. Got to be a better scenario than this. So yesterday, reflecting back, being a little memorable times in my past, it came to me that all stress is because we have a sidetracked unfolding. The natural process of you and I unfolding. We're here. As we grow, we unfold. And as a process, anything that stands in its way, fate, or fate's co-conspirator, in this case, you and me, anything that stands in that way causes a stress. So there's a really cool article in Forbes that I found this morning. Let me pull it up real quick. There's no reason to go through that because it's a large article. But what it's saying is that they've identified now doctors, and one doctor in particular, a medical director of the Prevention and Early Prevention Program of Psychoses, a London health center. They're identifying regions of the brain now that work to heal itself. And they're using MRI, according to the article published in Psychology Medicine. They're using the MRI to look at what happens in the brain itself. And they've uncovered truly fascinating proof that a mind, that a brain in combination will do what it has to try to heal itself. It doesn't want to feel frustrated or depressed or stuck or frazzled or blah. And for the question, does a head ever get tired of its own head games? Here's an answer that would say yes, it does. And that because it gets tired of them, it does what it can to heal itself, to bring itself back online. And when they looked at these brains in the MRI, they were able to see, here's a brain going, yeah, I know that I'm injured over here, but I'm going to do what I can to rebuild myself in this area. So what if that stress of being stifled, stilted, of a sidetracked unfolding, what if the mind senses that? What if it senses that this isn't what it's supposed to be doing? The article says, quote, our results highlight that despite the severity of tissue damage, the brain of a patient, and in this particular case it's talking about schizophrenia, but it says the brain of a patient with schizophrenia is constantly attempting to reorganize itself, to rescue itself, or to limit the damage, end quote, according to the good doctor. So imagine that. It knows it isn't firing on all cylinders. We don't get a sense of blah without our brain knowing it first. If we feel frustrated, it's equally as frustrated. If we're depressed, it's depressed. If we're stuck, it's stuck. And let me read it again. Quote, our results highlight that despite the severity of tissue damage, the brain of a patient with schizophrenia is constantly attempting to reorganize itself, to either rescue itself possibly, or to limit the damage. Constantly attempting to reorganize itself. Now, as we say every show, not a psychiatrist, not a medical doctor, not a shrink, psychologist, a licensed clinical anything, not a therapist, not a life coach. Heaven help us. But what I am simply suggesting, if you look at this article at Forbes, and it says, again, the mind is constantly attempting to reorganize itself. And if it happens in the mind of a schizophrenic, multiple personalities, any of the other different things that folks can be confronted with, then for you and I, if we have a stilted, a stifled, a sidetracked sense of unfolding, then we know after reading this report that the mind is doing what it can to reorganize itself. So what do you say? Instead of working against ourselves, we kind of meet our mind halfway. If at the MRI level it's showing it's trying to reorganize itself, it's trying to hone itself with its heart, it's trying to be congruent and empowered and thrilled, what do you say you and I get off our own backs? What do you say we meet our minds halfway? Stop working against ourselves and go, great, if it's going to tunnel out through all the fragmentation that my mind has become at whatever stage in my life that I contemplate it, if it's going to work to defragment itself from the inside out, what say you and I work to defragment our minds from the outside in? A little bit of a mental makeover. Since the mind's busy with a mental makeover, how about you and I have a mental makeover? Look at the stress in our lives. How can we be certain that a part of that internal stress is not because of a stilted legacy? What if there really is a nostalgia? What if you and I, in terms of those stress, in terms of those things that from time to time will work to derail us, what if you and I are homesick, born impeccably human, born with an all-natural being, born with an inner superhuman, born impeccably human? No bullshit crap. None of the baggage, none of the bling, none of all the other things. Think back. Memorial Day. Think back. What if stress presents itself because in your bloodline is a badass? You were here to steal the show, to wow the crowd and the world. And when that doesn't happen, a part of our head game is our homesickness for who we ultimately are, a nostalgia for who we are at our core, the marrow of our minds, the marrow of our hearts. That has to lead to stress. Imagine running around, all natural being, covered in blind spots, covered in amnesia. And it's working its tail off to tunnel out to you and I. Oh, but we're too busy. Carrot on the end of the stick. Got some goals, got some to-do lists, some bucket lists. We're too busy to answer the tunneling. Everyone's running around looking for their calling. Well, what if the stress comes as you're getting your call already? Your mind is working. Your brain is working. Not some Pollyanna nonsense. Not some self-help industry tactic crap. Your mind is working to tunnel out. What do you say, you and I, for a little bit, 20-minute victory. 20-minute victory today, 1/72nd of your day, to be your own best friend, to be your biggest fan. Because now we have proof, according to this article in Forbes, that the mind's working to do it, the brain's working to do it. It doesn't want to be damaged. It doesn't want to be defective. It doesn't believe that it's some tchotchke item that should be tossed on a discount table underneath a flashing light, the back end of some retail discount store. And if it doesn't believe it, how'd you and I ever get to that point? How'd we ever get to that point? We bought into it. We've been hoodwinked. We've been conned into believing that we're second class anything. Impeccably human. Think about what that means. Impeccably human. But early on, we bought into this. Humans. I don't know. You know my belief. I think humanity is already. We talked, I believe, last week about how our species is evolving. Will it be around in 100 years? I think perhaps our best quantum leap should be a leap back. Maybe we really are homesick. Maybe we really do miss our bloodline. Now, outlets in the media, motivational, industrial complex, all the rest of them, Meshuggah, they're perfectly happy for you forgetting your bloodline. Oh, the bloodline's for the queen. Don't forget to curtsy. Wouldn't cross the street to meet her. Unless, of course, she fell and needed help, then I'd cross the street and help her up. Other than that, couldn't care. They're busy selling everyone else's bloodline. I don't give a crap about anyone's bloodline but yours. Doesn't matter how tall, how short, how wide, how thin, how whatever. I'm a fan of your bloodline. I'm nostalgic for the days where you remember who you are. Where you recall and rebuild the relationship with your own bloodline. So what do we think happened? Born a superhuman, how did we lose it? How did the amnesia kick in the first place? How did it begin? How did we ever become apathetic about being a human? Impeccably human. Now, I know it's tough. I get you. You look at the news, you look here, you look there. People go like, look, this is the craziest group of beings ever put on a planet. But underneath all of that, before the amnesia, before the apathy, the atrophy, before all the blind spots set in and block the sun from shining, before all the baggage, all the bling, all the frantic binge thinking, we have an all-natural being. So what happened? And it's popular today to say, oh, well, I had a very tough childhood. We all had a very tough childhood. And if you didn't have a tough childhood, God love you. We all had rough upbringings. We all did. And if you didn't, God love you. But for the rest of us, life wasn't perfect. Life wasn't perfect. Childhood wasn't a breeze. But for some of us, we get to the point, we look back on life, on a part of our lives that we really didn't have a lot of control over. A lot of the memories that we have of adolescence and before, a lot of the thoughts, now a lot of the character traits were embedded in us with little, if any, say on our part. Think about it. Everyone says, oh, we need regressive therapy. We need to go back in time. We need to do this or that. Or we could say, hey, the key to know thyself, let's blend a couple different trains of thought here. The key to knowing thyself is to wholeheartedly embrace thy will be done. Now you define your own thy. Big Bang, big breath, evolution or Elohim, Garden of Eden, savannas of Africa. Don't care. It's only important to you. Only important to you. But if you and I get to a stage in our life, my brother used to tell me, speaking of Memorial Day, my brother would tell me one of his favorite sayings from some of the places, some of the battles he's been around in the world. I tweaked it a little bit. He had the saying called embrace the suck. And that term always stuck with me. And I tweaked it slightly because I don't think you and I need to embrace the suck, but we need to engage the suck. I'm not embracing it. I don't want to give it any more. I don't want to give it any more juice in my life than I absolutely have to. I'm not going to roll around, take it on a date, go for a nice walk. I'm not going to embrace the suck, but I'll engage it. So when we think back over our childhood, I think back over yesterday. oh, this happened or that happened or someone said this or someone did that. Man, just log on to Facebook. And you go, thy will be done. Is what it is. Tao follows its own path. Know thyself. And the key is to go, it happened. Nobody's perfect. Forgive them, for they know not what they've done. You and I had a tough childhood. God love us. But there will come a time where we hang up the training wheels, we hang up the water wings, we hang up the little dinosaur floaties around our waists, help us with our balance, our equilibrium, our flotation. We hang those up and go, yeah, I'll engage the suck. I'm not going to keep it buried. I'm not going to try to live, come up with some headline that's a fairy tale about my past. Wasn't perfect. So what? Who gives a crap? But when you begin to work on your all-natural being, you get to that point, you go, all right, let's engage the suck. Let's look at some of the things that kill me. Am I still here? Yes. All right, so maybe it wasn't as bad as we remember. And you think of some of the memories that we, quote, adopted. You think of some of the neural pathways, some of the ideas about life itself that were laid down outside of our conscious awareness. Like me coming to your home, asking to borrow your laptop, and adding all kinds of software to it, not telling you, closing the laptop, giving it back, you come back next time, fire it up. Holy cow, what is all this stuff? Well, that's our childhood, right? We left our laptop wide open, hackers moving around. Oh, I want you to believe this. Oh, you should believe that, whatever it is. So we let them load the software, totally oblivious to the fact that it was being loaded. But now we get to a certain stage in life, and that software is running the show. Running the show. Oh, I was ignored. Oh, I was, and fill in the blank, when I was little, and it changed me. Well, it did. But here's the cool thing about neuroplasticity. If it changed you, you can change it. It's a two-way street. So how do we change it? By blending two trains of thought. Know thyself, and thy will be done. Because there's nothing about our past you and I can change. Nothing. Zip, zero, zilch. So why not just zip it? What we can do is change our representation to that past, yes? Right? We can look back and go, my parents weren't perfect. Yeah, I was raised by an alcoholic father. I was raised by a passive mother. I could a whole laundry list of, I was raised. Wasn't smooth sailing. But when we engage the fact that it wasn't smooth sailing and go, you know what? It really didn't kill me. I'm still here. I'm still kicking. The mind begins to rewire itself, and that's what's the importance of this report in Forbes.com. We were battered as a child, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is. And if you weren't, God love you. Most of the rest of us were. And maybe we just kind of suffered that because our parents didn't know any better. It's real easy to sit here now with the advances of neuroscience over the last 20 years and sit here and judge anybody about the way they did it. When I was little, I'm coming up on yet another repeat of my 49th birthday here. Pretty arrogant of me to go, well, can you believe my parents? We didn't know a lot back then. And in fairness, in defense of your parents, not that I have to, their parents knew even less than they knew. When then you go, well, wait a minute. Talking about bloodlines, your great-grandparents knew even less. Forgive them, for they know not what they've done. Engage the suck. Go, yeah, wasn't the greatest, but I'm still here. I'm thankful for the shot at life. So what are we going to do? And when we don't run from our fears, when we don't hide, we don't cower in some cognitive corner about how tough yesterday was, last week, last month, last year, last decade, beginning of my life, whatever it was. We don't cower from it. We just look at it and go, all right, what'd you bring? Come on, what do you got? And then when our pulse quickens, our heart starts to pound, get a tear in the eye, hair stands up on the back of our neck, maybe our hands start to clench in a fist. Who knows how your body's going to represent it? But if we don't run from it, again, we're not going to embrace it. We're just going to engage it. Have a conversation with it. And then it goes, oh, it was just brutal. Then you can ask, okay, but are we still here? Now, I can imagine people listening to this going, oh, Brian, it was really worse for me. Okay, might very well have been. Might very well have been. But I can tell you, perhaps I shouldn't, but who are we kidding? You and I know I don't have a filter. Some of the things that I was subject to as a young boy, you take those examples, you look at them, and you go, yeah, but you know what? They didn't kill me. I'm not going to let them dictate everything from this moment moving forward. Surrender the training wheels. Kick off the water wings. Deflate the floaties. All right? Realizing that we can keep ourselves buoyant. And if you do that, if you engage it, have a conversation with it, whatever abuse you and I suffered, your abuse may have not been like mine. Not everybody and their brother was forced to play slap and tickle with the priest. Maybe you didn't grow up with a physically violent, alcoholic father. Maybe you didn't. If you didn't, God love you. But you reach a stage in your life where you just go, I should give these bags to TSA and see if they can't lose them. Yeah, I'll go over to the airline. Hey, check this bag for me. And then don't go to the carousel because you know they're going to lose it anyways. Or don't go to the carousel when you get off your flight. Go, just take that bag for me. But we engage it. We look at it. We don't hide from it. And maybe we can't do it for a full 20 minutes. Maybe we do it for 20 seconds. Look back at what happened to us and go, yeah, I lived. Stop your whining, Brian, you big baby. Because if you're honest, there are other people had it a lot worse than you and I did. A lot worse. So you wake up one day and go, I'm done whining. Right? I'm still here. And when we do that, we find the things, well, let me say this. It's like a chess match. Because the egoic mind is going to do what it can to keep you trapped. It loves, right? It's like open mic night for someone that doesn't deserve an open mic ever, right? You get these people, although I've never been to a karaoke place, I can imagine you give some people an open mic and they're never going to let it go. Well, that's what your egoic mind is like. That's what the binge thinking, all the frantic philosophies. Oh, well, I can tell you my life was tougher than Brian's. Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. I had a pretty tough one. But then one day I woke up and said, so what? What a complainer you are. And when I did that, it altered my position on the chessboard, on the checkerboard, with my own mind. Because as I released, and by released I mean I engaged and I was like, yeah, so what? Cry me a river. Then my mind would bubble up something. Oh, yeah? Well, what about this? Well, do you remember the time you were... Okay, great. Let's deal with that. Right? So then you engage it, not embrace it. I'm not going to, I'm not taking a warm shower with any of these emotions. Right? Just engage it. And go, okay, well, let's take a look at that. And then that part of your egoic mind goes, wait a minute. Take a look at it. Take a look at it. What? Oh, he's supposed to be cowering. He's supposed to be hiding in the corner. This is supposed to send him shrieking under the sheets. And you go, all right, let's take a look at that. And then the egoic mind goes, holy cow, mayday, mayday, mayday. We've been found out. Quick, stage left. And you go, great. Let's engage it. Let's take a look. What's that all about? And then when you let that energy bubble up, you engage it. You find it dissipates. Find it goes away. Then the ego goes, oh, I'm not losing this chess match. Forget that. Welcome to the jungle. Throws up another thought.
Well, you were left alongside of the road.
Well. And I promise you, if you look at some of the things that you and I are so obsessed about in our past, and just go, I will be done. And for the people that may not have been in the perfect position to give us the best lessons about how to load software, maybe they weren't computer programmers. Let's just kick that metaphor right. Kick that thing to death. They didn't know how to load software. So you go, forgive them. I'm not going to give them any more control over me than I have. And you'll find a blind spot starts to fall away. You'll find a part of the amnesia starts to fall away. And the more you do it, the more the binge thinking begins to slow down. The more we stop working against ourselves, the more our all-natural being is like, I think she gets it. I think he's got his head in the game now. Good head games, not bad head games. No more stilted legacy. You're the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchild of the divine, however you define it. And it's ready for you to kick in some doors. But you and I can't kick in a lot of doors if we're busy carrying all the bags from our past. It's just too much junk. We have like these cognitive junk drawers. Now, this is why it's going to be a benefit when we finally take All Natural Being. And we'll have some information on it, allnaturalbeing.com. As I say all the time, drop me an email. I'll drop you an email back. You should know, no reason to worry. We're never going to sell your email, give it away, lend it, give you any of these other things.
Oh, I found a great deal on crushed vitamin powder.
Whatever. We're never going to do any of that. So leave me an email. I'll send you one back telling you about the TV aspect of it. But what's going to be cool is when we take All Natural Being to video, to the internet, we're going to be broadcasting live on Facebook. You'll see a lot of these things I ask. I'm busy raising my hand. Right? Who's the idiot? No, right over here. I'm the idiot. Who's the dope? Oh, that would be Brian. There you go. Right over here. We get to a point where we wake up one morning and go, that's it. It's time for me to take control of the ship. Wasn't perfect. But when we engage the suck and the ego fights us, it's a death match. It's a mixed martial arts match. No holds barred. Because the egoic mind will do what it can to keep you and I subjugated.
Oh, yeah? Well, how about this?
Let's engage it. Take a look. Nah. Swing, whiff, yawn. Let's move along. And then all these other things start to bubble up. Then you deal with that one, and you deal with it in the moment. And if you need to, you breathe in. Exhale. Scan the situation, the horizon, wherever you find yourself. Then you think. Then you talk. Then you take action any way you want to. But you and I we're not built to cower in the corner over something that happened to us in the past. It's not in us to be that way. And that's the stress that comes from a stilted legacy? Why handcuff ourselves? Why tie both the hands behind our back and then get down on ourselves when we're not able to confront the challenges of life, the everyday ups and downs of the labyrinth, and then we beat ourselves up because we tied our own hands behind our own back? You deserve that legacy. You're here to fulfill the destiny that is a part of that legacy. And if we're homesick for the pristine. We're homesick because we sense our bloodline and we turn our backs on it. We'll take a quick break.
IPMNation.com.
So, every morning I get in here to the Metropolitan Co-working Space. Oh, and I should tell you, please reach out to me, 331-684-SOUL. It's 331-684-7685. And thanks to my good friend Matt at IPM Nation, my Matchucation. Should I go through? We're going to be taking live calls here starting next week, I think. Oh, I know. You're thinking to yourself, Brian, you can barely manage the technology of a laptop and 2 iPads. Now you're going to put in phone-ins and calls and everything? Yeah, why not? So that ought to be a show. Stick around. But yes, I'll be learning how to take live calls, so you can text me or you'll be able to call in. 331-684-7685. You can hit me on Twitter at Brian Brawdy, or as always, allnaturalbeing.com. If we're not hooked up via email already, why not? If you're listening, drop me your email. I'll respond back. We can connect that way. I get up every morning, come in here to do this, because on the top of my list, you want a bucket list? You want a carrot at the end of the stick? You want a goal? Top of my list every day is to figure out a new and creative way to remind you of who you already are. No baloney, no crap, sandwiches, none of it. Right? None of it. So a part of the preparation every day is that I'm like your bodyguard. I'm like your crash test dummy. So I go in and I find, all the rage. Here's another self-help industry tactic video. Oh, yes, please. Let's just dive right in. So I listen to some of this drool so I can come back and tell you, you're good. No, don't bother. Don't bother. So here's one of my favorite ones this morning by a name, huge name in the industry, huge name, who really ought to know better. Really ought to know better. Here's the quote. Step out of the moment and into eternity. Step out of the moment and into eternity, end quote. Another carrot on the end of the stick. And I don't know, honestly, how someone that doesn't realize that the only way to touch eternity, the only way to reunite your fraction of the pristine with the universal pristine, the only way to tap in the truly unimaginable power of that pristine is through the present moment. How do you even get to call yourself self-help? If there's ever a self-hurt industry, I'd be all over that. But asking you to step outside of the moment and into eternity, craziness. So most mornings, I got to take a break. Wait and see what happens outside of the studio. I jumped the other day. A truck pulled up, threw a newspaper, hit the window right in front of me. I'm like, what the heck was that? I need to take a little bit of a break because I can't listen to the self-help industry tactics, the motivational industrial complex, because it's convinced that the only way to control you is to convince you you're inferior in some way, and you're not. Oh, but don't worry. We're here to help you. They're here to help you by telling you to step outside of the moment? Oh, yeah, Bri. Double up to the bar. Here's a shot of snake oil. So I'll probably not put that portion of my morning in the live TV show because you'll just see me sitting here. Let me just jump ahead. It'll just be me shaking my head. I sit here looking at this, listening to this drool by people who absolutely know better. Not ought to know better, they know better. And still the grift continues. I told you my favorite one a couple weeks back, getting an email citing the Iowa, Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Stanford, wherever, that only the people that wrote down their goals, they're now the kings of the universe, all of us work for them, and it's complete baloney. And this particular expert in the self-help field sends me an email, says, quotes the same study.
Oh, well, you have to know this, Harvard.
And then at the end of the paragraph puts a little asterisk saying, oh, yeah, like a footnote. Like if you were to check and see, take it from a study. You click on it, it's a dead link. Doesn't go anywhere because he knows it's wrong. He knows it's wrong. Which is why I continue. We're coming up on 2 months now. Wow, I think tomorrow's 2 full months of doing All Natural Being. So let me say again, if you're a life coach, I don't know why you're still listening, but if you're a life coach, if you're a self-help guru, here's some of my favorite. If you're a coach to help people manifest by using the secret, feel free to call. Here's what I'm really doing. I'm building a phone line just for you. I'd love it if other people would like to call and kick around cool stuff, but we're building a phone line so people can call in and debate me, attack me.
Oh, no, Bry. That's a real study. That really happened.
Now look, a pig just flew by the window, right? We're going to use 331-684-SOUL. And if you're listening and your friend is one of these self-help gurus, please give him the number. Pass it along. I would love to talk to him or her. Because there's nothing wrong with you and me. We're not inferior in any way. We're asleep a little. We've forgotten our bloodline. We're covered in blind spots, wrapped in amnesia. But other than that, there's nothing wrong with us. But some folks will capitalize on that sense of disconnection. Go, you're feeling frustrated, depressed, stuck, frazzled. How about a carrot? But for the rest of us, those believing in their all-natural being, those believing in their inner superhuman, those willing to give themselves 1/72nd of the day, 1/72nd of the day, 1 20-minute victory. Be your own best friend. At the very least, agree that for 20 minutes you're going to stop working against yourself. You're going to get off your own back. There's nothing tchotchke about you. Nothing at all. Now, some of us tend to forget who we ultimately are. Absolutely. And for some people, this message isn't going to work. Some people just don't care. God love them. It's not you and me, though. Wish them well. Put them in the rearview mirror. Lay them alongside of the road. They're not up for the ride. If you're comfortable being a couch potato, and I mean it cognitively or physically, however you want to do it, then this probably isn't a thought experiment for you. But there's nothing tchotchke about you, and I would offer, never let anyone suggest otherwise. Another article that I found this morning, just trying to buffer my brain. Talk about building an ego shield. Buffering my brain from some of the latest motivational videos. Let me throw this out as well. If someone needs to yell at us to motivate us, if someone needs to be there to scream and holler, And that is their attempt at motivating us. Getting us up and moving around, prancing around like some circus ponies. Some of those bears in the Russian circus. Is it really motivation? Is it really being motivated into anything that means anything to you? When you remember who you are, you don't need somebody yelling at you. You don't need somebody screaming. Like that's inspiration. Like that's motivation. And you remember who you are, your all-natural being. You don't need that. So in any event, this morning, trying to buffer myself from that in the closing 45, found an article that talks about mindfulness is really just a way of dialing back some of the binge thinking. And I like that. I saw a term the other day as well, that mindfulness is just about tapping into the unknown. Well, if it's been a while since we've reconnected with our all-natural being, then that definition kind of works for me. It's unknown. Because we haven't developed the dialogue. We haven't gone through the inner orienteering that we talk about from time to time. So maybe it is the unknown. Maybe it really does work that way. So if mindfulness meditation is an attempt to reconnect to that unknown, then why don't we try reconnecting with that unknown? Remember the best acronym: breathe in, exhale, scan your horizon, take action. Sift through the situation. Engage it, the suck. Don't embrace it, engage it. See what lessons it has. And then after that, we can think, we can talk, we can take action. But the key to being your best is really that simple. Breathe in, exhale, check your situation, check your six, and then take action. In that moment, decide who's going to ride the bus. I can tell you who's going to ride the bus. Everything that's ever happened to you in your past. Then you go, okay, who's going to drive that bus? Now we're getting somewhere. Because in that 20-second little break, when we remember who works for who, that your mind works for you. You don't work for it. It's a tool. Just like any other appendage, if you will. They work for you. And then when you do that, some of the stress, some of the sadness, some of the melancholy, some of the blah, it falls the way it must. What do they say? Water off a duck's back? Water off a beaver's tail? What else could it do? It's not going to stick to your all-natural being. It's not going to be stuck like a Post-it note, like a pin in a pincushion. Not going to stick you with it. It can't. It's your all-natural being. It's Teflon. No stick surface. So for 20 seconds, and then maybe even 20 minutes, could you be your own best friend today? Could you be your biggest fan? And it all starts when you work on your bloodline. And if you need to, then work backwards. All right, you had your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, all the way back. Go back as far as you like. But being subjugated, being scared, being timid, being worried, not a part of who you are. It's a part of your baggage, but not a part of who you are. And the only reason I'm confident in telling you this is humanity never would have made it out of day one without the sense of resilience that I was talking about in this morning's anaerobic aphorism. That's your greatest resource, is that resilience. And as you know, I believe when you remember who you are, that you are at your very core, a wellspring of resilience. Let me see. Ever break a bone when you were little? Ever get a cold, the flu? Ever get a headache when you were little or more recently? If you recovered from any of that, that's your all-natural resilience. Ever drive in a car, get a flat tire? Did you leave the car alongside of the road, let someone else take it? Decide to hitchhike home? No, it's a flat tire. Does it suck? Yes, I got somewhere to be. Can we change the flat tire? Absolutely. Can we continue on our journey? Absolutely. I'm not going to leave the car just because out of the tread took a nail. We're resilient. We keep on. What's the saying? We keep on keeping on. When you remember who you are, when you remember the essence of your bloodline, of your rock star status, of your celebrity, now that's something to have a Twitter account about. That's something to post on Facebook. Because when you remember who you are, that resiliency is the key to it all. Thy will be done, whoever the thy is. The thy matters to no one but you. You decide how you're going to decipher and define the divinity. Sacred or secular, pulpit or petri dish, white lab coat or a robe. Your call. Doesn't matter. Only to you, as it should. But when you go back to the beginning of that bloodline, all the craziness around us doesn't touch our resiliency. Unless, of course, as we agreed on Friday, you're a co-conspirator. You're driving the getaway car, right? Because if you and I can be touched by these things, we have to be honest. The number one suspect is in the mirror. No one can make us feel without our permission. We reach a certain stage where no one gets to load their software on our laptop without us surrendering it. At our core, we're resilient. It's the greatest resource we have. And we can take that resilience back when we decide to engage the suck. When we decide, what about those things in the past that are keeping me cuffed, that are keeping me tied down, keeping me held back? And as one pops up, go, yeah, that wasn't fun. Did it kill me? No. Was it worse than a sharp stick in the eye? Maybe so, maybe not. But I survived. And then we take control of the joystick. We take control of the remote. We decide the visions that will play out in our minds. We are that resilient. So in your journal, your evidence blotter, your logbook, wherever you record your fingerprints of provenance, if you and I look back at some of the things that happened to us when we were younger, we bring them forth in the light of this very moment, not some external eternity. Step out of the moment. Ugh. But in this moment, we bring it into this moment. Then we get to look at it as a lesson. It may have been traumatic in the past, but the moment we bring it into this moment and interrogate it, we engage it, when we do that, it becomes a tool for us moving forward, not a trauma that held us captive in the past. It's not a trauma. It's a tool. And a part of being a functioning, fully optimized superhuman is to reach a stage where we look at every trauma as a tool. Every trauma that we've been subject to, we look at it as a technique, a tactic that allows us to move forward more fully optimized, more fully integrated. Now, this isn't easy. It's simple stuff, but it isn't easy. Certain memories love having a hold of us. But it is simple stuff. When the thought comes to mind, let's engage it. Let's not run from it. Let's create a space. That's the benefit of the ego shield that we always talk about. Let's create a little bit of space. So the moment it pops up, we got a little bit of distance. Keep it at arm's length. Still let it play out on the big screen, your mind's eye. But keep a little bit of distance. And see how we can turn that past trauma into a present tool, a technique. How we can use that past trauma, whatever it may be, to hone our temperament in this moment. So what if the stress, the blah, some of the stuckness you and I feel from time to time, what if it is because we're homesick? That we subconsciously sense who we are in our marrow. And every day, we don't fight our way out of our blind spots. Every day, we voluntarily remain wrapped in our own amnesia. What if that causes us the frustration? What if that causes us any sense of dread at all? Because we simply refuse to remember who we already are, and that everything we've ever wanted, we've always had. So what are some of the things, some of the memories of your past that are holding you in check? That's today's 20-minute victory. Write them down. Plot them out. Stop giving them power over your present. And then tap in to the truly unimaginable power that comes from interrogating them in this moment. Because once, I can tell you from experience, once the interrogation begins, they'll start to fold. Oh, criminals the same way. If you ever had to interrogate anybody in law enforcement, I had a little bit of a flashback myself there. Interrogate it, they'll fold. They'll fold. Write it down in your evidence blotter, in your journal, in your notebook. And then when one pops up, write down the next one. Engage it. No more stifle. No more sidetrack. No more stilted unfolding. What do you say? You and I agree. 20-minute victory today. Let's just let it unfold the way it does, the way it must. Thy will be done. Because when we submit to thy will be done, the Tao follows its own path. It is what it is. When we take what the labyrinth throws at us in the moment, that's the formula for knowing thyself. It truly is that simple. All right, my friends, we'll be back. Don't forget, allnaturalbeing.com. Let's trade some emails. Soon, I'm working on it all day today. Be able to take in the call, so I'm looking forward to all the secret experts calling in. We'll be doing that very soon. Also, don't forget, hit me up on Facebook if we're not friends already. I don't know why we're not. So give me a shout out, and we'll connect tomorrow morning. Remember who you are between now and then.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
IPMNation.com.